All right.
So thank you everyone for joining us. It was voted that this is a great time for coaches to connect online. So hopefully this is all a good time for you and for your fellow coaches. If it's not though, we will be posting this session on YouTube that you can access after this and share with your coaches and maybe even your athletes. So that will be on our YouTube page. So feel free to share that with anyone. So this is our third session of these coach socializations series, and we decided to start these because we felt it was important for coaches to connect during this tough time and time of uncertainty. So feel free at the end to connect with me and provide any ideas of topics you think that you guys as coaches would benefit from and would help your athletes during this tough time and yourselves during this tough time. So feel free to connect with me, and this, we wanted to start this coach specific talk with Pat, as it's probably the most common question we're receiving right now is like, how do I connect with my athletes? How do I motivate them? How do I keep engaged? So I think this will be a great session, and I look forward to it, not only as a coach, but I look forward to what you guys will take from it as well. So without further ado, Pat will get started with the presentation. And again, guys, if you have any questions, just write it in the chat box and we'll open up the mics at the end for a Q&A.
Great. Wonderful. Thanks a lot. I hope everybody's doing well. I hope I can share something with you that might be of some benefit. I know it's a bit of an unusual time, and I think we're all sort of figuring things out as we go. And I guess my hope is that we'll be able to. Hang on. There we go. There's my. Couldn't get my screen moving here. My hope is that we can maybe even open a discussion and share some ideas that we're all using that will just really help our community and make this work a little bit better. So I'm just a rowing coach. I'm not a public health official or a mental health professional or anything like that. So this is really just my story and sort of what I've come up with and put into place, and I think it's an ever evolving situation and process that I'm hoping to share with my athletes and make things work as best I can. So the situation that I'm in, I'm the provincial coach for rowing in Nova Scotia, and I work with about 16 to 25 of the top rowers in the province. And we train, you can see the picture here in a small basement with about 10. We can bring in one more, an additional erg, for 11 rowing machines in our small space. And we also have 5 stationary bikes and a ski erg and a squat rack and some weights where we do our work. It's pretty austere. But it seems to get the job done, and the athletes seem to enjoy coming to our space. We have a mix of age groups and performance groups. So there's an emerging talent group that are sort of Canada Games eligible that we're trying to develop. There's athletes who are just a little bit further ahead that are in what we call our development group, and we're trying to offer them some good fundamentals while they work in their club programs. And then we have athletes who are sort of entering into later stages in long-term athlete development, into to learn to compete and train to compete and whatnot, all the way into trying to go to world championships and the like. It's a real mix of ages. We have a 15-year-old to 27-year-old in the environment. They're mainly high school and university students, but we also have an architect, a professional engineer, a teacher. So it's a bit of an engine sport. So we have the athletes who are just developing over a longer period of time, and they have a home here with our training center and programs. The mission of the Nova Scotia provincial program is to deliver a world-class athlete and coach development program to rowing in Nova Scotia. So we're really trying to put together, perhaps on a tight budget, something that would be on par with the rest of the world, taking the best practices from the rest of the world and put them in action here in Nova Scotia. So we, with our little space, we knew that there was something coming. I watched the news regularly. You could see things happening in other parts of the world. But it was really the end of February, early March that I started to realize like something was going to happen globally. It wasn't going to be confined to China. And as Italy went into lockdown, I saw a few clips of doctors sort of talking about the gridlock in their hospitals and the strife that they were under, their inability to care for the people in their community. And then the lockdown happened in Italy, and there started to come out some YouTubes, I don't know, some videos on YouTube about training in a lockdown situation. And it really got me thinking like, oh geez, this is going to happen and it's probably not going to be good. What are we going to do? So I just got sort of in worst case scenario thinking. We had also just come back from a training camp. I took 12 athletes to Sarasota, Florida for a training camp. We'd just come back, and the John Hopkins map here just became a real. I was marveling at it and just watching the growth of all these red dots. And I noticed that there was a case in Sarasota, and felt like, geez, we just dodged a bullet in early March when we came home into February. We also had an athlete going to Mexico for training camp with the national team. And so I started to be a little wary of that and wanted to know what's going on and how we could handle this and if we would have to do any isolation or anything. Fortunately, Mexico wasn't a hot spot at that time. But it definitely got me thinking, well, what are we going to do here? So I knew a plan would be required, and over the course of a day or two, I started to rough one out, and I wanted to share it with the athletes, and I sort of sat them down and said, like, well, this is going to be our plan. We'll try and send some ergometers, the rowing machines, home. So this is my little home setup with my daughter rowing on the machine here. Always sneak her in somehow. And I knew we'd have to modify the training program accordingly. And I recommended the athletes probably want to, go to Cleves or a place like that and buy a skipping rope and probably a mini band and some elastic tubing so they could do some resisted strength training. If we ever were in a situation where we're going to be locked down. Contacted we have a really great strength and conditioning coach at the sports center named Craig McDonald, and sort of said, hey, like what can we do? Can we start dreaming up something? Because I think this could happen pretty quick, and it's probably going to happen after March break when people start coming home. And then I started musing about setting up a blog. In 2005, 2006, I got into CrossFit, and I really liked how it was an open source program, and you could post your results onto their blog or even their affiliates' blogs, and you could chart the progress that you were making and kind of compete with your teammates or all the other athletes in the CrossFit community. So I thought, geez, this would be really, really cool if we could do something like that. So it was something that I had in my back pocket and wanted to use, but didn't really know how or when I would want to use it. And then this was like, oh, hey, I could use it now. So I started to figure out how we could make that work. And then I also knew that if we get in a situation where we're in a bit of a lockdown, like maintaining routine would be really important, both for the athletes, for our training, and for the cohesion of our group. So started to figure out around these things and how we could deliver something like that. and then things moved really, really fast. I sat down with the athletes, I think on, um, it would have been Thursday of March 12th, and sort of gave them that broad sense, like, make sure you get a skipping rope and things, and we'll try and send you home with ergs. Make sure you wash your hands. Don't come to practice sick. And 10 minutes after they left, our landlord came down and said, you need to know that one of the office just above us, somebody's been sick. They have a flu. They were just at a conference, and they were in a room with somebody who's been diagnosed with COVID-19. You've got to be really careful here, and you should start taking some action. So I think that gave us a little foot ahead. So I immediately started talking to my colleagues with Rona, Nova Scotia, to figure out what we're going to do. We shut the training center down immediately, and we started to do some planning, because it got real for us very quick. And then over that weekend, so we'd shut down for the weekend. And in the course of that weekend, things evolved quickly, and the schools were canceled. March break camps were canceled. All the other PSOs were canceling everything and sort of shutting down their operations. And I realized, like, well, okay, this is definitely something that's going to happen. I was still holding on to hope that we could get on the water, that the ice would break and we could get on the water. And like, we've got pretty long oars and pretty long boats. I was like, that'll be pretty good distance. We're going to be okay. We just need to wipe down our oars. Like, it's going to be all right. And then our NSO started to shut things down, and it was like, okay, we're getting closer to that worst case scenario. So by the Monday, I distributed the equipment that we had, and over the weekend, I knew this was going to be the way it was going to go. I contacted the clubs to make sure that they could cover off on any athletes that we couldn't provide ergs to, and yeah, tried to set up everybody with a good situation. It was a bit fluid because there were athletes moving. Some of them are university students, so they were going to go home. Some of the athletes were coming home from away, and were looking for some support. So it's sort of managing all the juggling all the balls, and finding the right equipment and the right supports to put them in a good situation. I think we did it for the most part. And by Tuesday, we had everything out of our center. The center was shut down, and the athletes were training at home. So it then required changing the training program that I had created, and making it sort of a train at home situation. And distributed the workouts accordingly. With all of that, there's so much change that I sent a lot of emails, just to update the athletes, the coaches, and the parents. But trying to be also in contact with the club coaches, so they knew what I was doing and could ask questions, or model what we're doing in some way, so they could provide for their rowing community at large, and continue to provide them with some structure and service, even though we couldn't have the face-to-face contacts. So it was a lot of change really fast, and it still is. But I have also been trying to contact the athletes directly, and see how that's working for them, and then also trying to measure the important things that I'll get to from the blog. But I guess the athletes, I felt really needed a sense of clarity. and lots of information with fact, and things that were actionable on their end. So that's where I got to the guiding principles that I've been trying to operate off of, and really, it's to keep our athletes and our community safe is first and foremost in my mind, and then recognizing and communicating to the athletes that exercise is really good for you. That it's good for your physical health and your mental health, and it keeps you on track with your goals. So we've been working around that premise. Um, and there's just so much uncertainty right now. How long will we be in a socially distanced reality? Uh, what does this mean? How's my school going to work? When am I going to see my friends again? What's this going to mean for my training? Am I going to ever get to compete again? And then there's God knows how many uh, um, fake news articles and stuff like that, really making the world even worse than it seems. So having a routine and a sense of I do this and then I do this and then I do this could just create some sort of regularity and continuity and something that they could count on. And then, I still remember being a student and now as a professional. When there's a change in my routine, like a holiday comes or something, I tend to procrastinate, and there's the one big thing that I need to get done that I dither for a long time, and then I start feeling guilty, and then I'm kind of ashamed of myself for letting it get so far away from me, and then like I just feel really awful. And it's probably not the sort of feelings you need when you're trying to deal with a crisis and be alive and responsible or responsive to it. So I was trying to dream up a situation where we could be accountable to each other, and therefore maintain that sense of routine and schedule. And that would allow the athletes to really control what they can control. There's so much right now that's out of control, and it makes people feel terrible. We want to have a sense of control over our destiny and um, our lives, and right now I think it feels really out of control, and it's um, politicians and doctors and health officials who are deciding what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. And I think sometimes we just need that little bit to feel like we've got something. But we can take control of our training. So that was sort of my hook, or my dream, is that our sport will offer the athletes something to help them have a sense of control in this time. And having at least a break from sitting in front of a computer or a TV or whatever device or thing, I think is really important, because like, I thought back to, when September 11th, 2001 happened, and just how fixated I was to the TV and looking for any news report, and, and then the following wars that ensued, and just how consumed I was. And I thought so much about what was going on, that it wasn't particularly healthy for me. I don't think it was good for me, and I could see it in the people who were close to me. They were all consumed by it. So I think I needed a distraction at that point. And I think maybe the athletes now, probably more than ever, especially with the device in there, this is like 19 years later, with a device in your hand that's connected all the time, they probably need a break from it. So I think physical activity could be a really great service to them, and provide something really great to the people that I get to work with. And finally, um, people just need people. And I think, especially in a time of crisis, and this is such a unique situation because we don't have that contact with people. So I wanted to find a way that the athletes could connect and talk to one another, and just feel that social connection, and something for each other. I don't believe for a second that the platforms that I created are going to do that for the athletes, but it could be a bit of an impetus, knowing that they can reach out. So I guess I'll try and show a little bit of the blog. It's just a few screenshots that I have that might be useful. So yeah, I'll just talk about the blog here. This, you can see a sample of it on Saturday, March 21. I set them up with a really hard training session. So basically, they were going to go as hard as they can, so their VO2 max pace, for actually just a little bit faster for as long as they can, and then they needed to post that result. Row light for 15 minutes and do the same thing again. So it was a real date with pain. And it's a terrible workout because you're really, it's you can quit at any time. But it's so physically taxing that it's a challenge on the mental side as well. So I wanted to give them something really hard, and they wouldn't know if the result was very good until they posted to the site. And I also wanted to give them a timeline, so have it done and posted by 10 a.m. So it creates a bit of a SMART goal, but then it also creates that sense of accountability. And so do the session, and then there's a reveal at 10 a.m. and you get to see how you did with the others. We had 13 comments. I think 2 of them were mine, so we're down to 11, but it was pretty good participation from our group. And you know, I think they're a little excited about doing it again on this coming Saturday. So the cruelty will continue at least for another week, and then I'll find something a little bit more a little different after next week. But I want them to be able to chart their progress now. You can see the Friday event was a little less commented. There was so this is part of my my analysis, is like, are they participating? What's our participation rate? And then the quality of comments. I haven't shared any of the comments because I just kind of want to keep it to our group, but they're really sharing some insightful things in terms of this workout was really hard. It's so difficult to do it alone. I'm used to having my teammates beside me, you know, and I miss being with you guys. Or with really long pieces, this is just exhausting, and like, I really question why I'm doing this. And I think that level of vulnerability and analysis in the process really helps each other share and grow together, and sort of work through some of the challenges that they're facing. So that's been sort of the quality experience with the blog. And it's worked, I think, quite well. I was a little disappointed with the rate of the comments. I was hoping, you know, everybody would do it. So I sort of took to doing some check-ins and follow-ups with the athletes. So some WhatsApps and emails. I know that emails are probably preferable from a safe sport perspective, but I know I can actually get answers from athletes when I use WhatsApp. So I'm trying to be really cognizant when I reach out and contact the athletes and check in and see how they're doing, because like, I can't do it. Like, when they come into our center or the boathouse, you know, I try and make eye contact with them every time and ask how they're doing and how they're feeling. And I can kind of watch how they do their dynamic warm-up and their warm-ups, and how their social interactions are going to gauge how they're doing, how they're responding to the training program, and how their life stresses are manifesting. And I don't have that opportunity now. So I am trying to contact the athletes, and I do use a WhatsApp, and My approach is anything I say, I have to be ready to defend to anybody, and I have to hold it to the highest possible standard and expect that this is a public document that anybody will read, and that I absolutely can't violate this trust in any way is my approach. And it's a bit of an exceptional time, but and it's not my preferred way of communicating, but I think in some ways I have to do this to make sure that they're doing okay. um, and also to solicit feedback on how do I make these comment rates work better, and what can we do there, and also to just let them know that they're not forgotten, even though they're not in the environment. So checking in and seeing how their sick grandmother's doing in this, especially in this environment or situation, or your dog must be really happy, it's probably getting a lot of walks right now. Uh, Letting them know that I know them, and I haven't forgot them, and I think maintaining the relationship in that way is probably important. But then also getting to business. How's your training going? Are you okay? Do you feel well right now? Um, and thankfully things are going quite well right now with everybody. So there's a few lessons that I've learned with this process so far, and it's early days, and it's certainly in its evolution. The maintaining the contact through more individual means has been effective. It's been good, and it's probably grown the trust within our group. So, and I feel quite good about that right now, and I think the athletes feel good about that. So that's been a positive event in what we're doing. The group emails to parents, athletes, and coaches. The parents seem to really enjoy that. I don't think the athletes read it. The coaches, I think, are reasonably receptive to them. And I figure if I'm overdoing it, if I'm flagging their inbox, they can always delete it, and at least then it's their choice and their option. I'll certainly slow down the rate in those early days, those first 3 days where things really changed on a dime. There was probably a daily email, and now it's probably every second or every third day or something like that, just to keep people in the loop and know what's going on. The blog idea has worked, but there's some learning that I'm going through right now. I still like it, and I think I'll still pursue it. It's probably effective for 60%, maybe probably closer to 50, but it's definitely not for everybody. And sometimes not the best athletes will invest in their time and energy in that. So finding ways that are really user friendly will become more important. And there has to be high trust in the group early on, and I think it has to continue through the process. And what I'm finding with the teenage girls that I'm working with, they're not very interested in connecting this way. And I'm okay with it. I think I was trying to figure out why, and I was trying to figure out, like, should I like really bug them about this or not? But I took a course called Keeping Girls in Sport, and it was really great. And one of the things, I don't know if I remember it correctly, I took it a couple of years ago, but for boys, and especially, they're going to work, they're going to perform, and then they get acceptance within the group. And the paradigm that seems to be with girls and young women is they need to feel accepted first, and then they'll work, and then they'll perform. And I think in this situation, the teenage girls that I'm working with, at least, and I mean, it's a pretty small cohort. I think it's like like maybe 5 teenage girls that make up the 40% that aren't participating in our blogs right now. I think it could be something along those lines, where they're not going to make themselves vulnerable, and especially online. I think, and I'm really good with that, because hopefully they're as judicious with that as they are with their Instagram posts or whatever else they do in social media. That they're cautious and they're not overly vulnerable in such a hugely public thing. So, yeah, that's my sort of thoughts around the blog, and why I'm probably not going to try and press it really hard for that cohort. With that said, I'd started off with Blogger. It's just something that I knew from a decade ago, and it's I there are some issues with the commenting, and it's you have to have a Google account, you have to be signed in, and it'll bump you out, and it's not user friendly, and you can't post pictures, and the athletes don't have a great deal of control with what gets posted. There's a lot of admin rights and stuff like that that need to be managed. Um, so I've been experimenting with Workplace. Thanks, Kirsty. uh, and I'm starting to find that it. Oh shoot! I didn't want to advance yet. Sorry. Oh my gosh, what's going on? I'm finding that that's working quite a bit better. I can post documents on it. They can. The neat things with the rowing machines is when they finish a workout, they can go to the memory, and it'll list every piece that they did, how they performed, stroke rate, wattage, speed, distance. They can take a picture of it and just upload it in the comments section. So it's just so quick and easy. And then it's a closed group. So I think that level of vulnerability is, you can actually be a little bit more vulnerable because it's just with the people in your group. There's no one from outside who's going to come in and troll you or whatever. I'm pretty old. I don't know this stuff, but I hear these words, and I can see how they'd be a very real fear for people. So I think there's just more comfort and security in that. So I think probably we'll pursue this. I've had a bunch of different suggestions. Facebook was one of them, and I didn't want to send them to a social media platform, or like a highly social media, because I know when I go on Facebook to check something out, I'm there for an hour. I just want to see one post on a coaching thing, and then I'm finding high school friends and what their kids are doing now, and it's a black hole for me. So I think I didn't want to go there, and I think the athletes would probably find the same thing. So I wanted to kind of avoid something along those lines. I guess one of the final things was, talking to all of the athletes, we got to realize as a group just how connected we are, and that we have a really great group, and that the environment helps them do really hard things. And I think as we go back to a real world eventually, we'll have the benefit of that, and we probably won't take it as for granted as we have in other times, and I think we're really fortunate for that. So there might be a bit of a blessing in what we're experiencing right now. I guess now looking to the future, I've got a picture of my YTP. This is going to be one of the big things that's in doubt, and I'll have to start considering. But a few of the things that I'm looking at is I'll have to continue with the group emails, and then individual feedback from the athletes, and just checking in to make sure they're okay. I do have a couple of athletes who are trying out for the Olympics and Paralympics, and their whole world's in a bit of a chaos now. I think they're at peace with it, but they are going to have to shift and pivot. And yeah, so that will be a bit of an issue for them. And then there's going to be a lot of cancellation of events coming up. Um, I know my summer has completely changed. I was going to be away for a couple months and go to England, and now our regatta in England in July is canceled. So yeah, I'm going to be in Nova Scotia, which is wonderful. I'm really happy about it, but then also a little disappointed I don't get to experience this international regatta that I was hoping to go to. I guess just continuing on with my list, I'm likely to switch platforms and go with Workplace. So that'll be one of the changes that happens over the next week or two, or actually, it'll be in place by Monday. I'm looking at doing some video feedback now with the athletes. So have them capture video with Huddle, an app called Huddle, and then they can send it to me, and I can send back written comments or even voiceover on that. So they're mentally engaged in the technical process, as well as the physical and mental training that we're trying to accomplish through the work that we're doing. And then I think I'm going to have to start looking at either probably weekly group conference calls or Zoom meeting or Skype or something like that, or Google Hangouts, to just continue to maintain that sense of community and connection. I know more than likely the deepest conversations probably won't happen there, but they will sprout off as branches from that. But that might be a pretty good service for them, and it's a great opportunity for me to get good feedback from the athletes on how the training's going and how I need to change the training the training plan I'm creating to meet the realities and different. It's really hard to do long pieces all alone, or to do super hard pieces all alone. So that's starting to come true. And then I think they're going to have to work through how to train alone, and maybe not be able to run or go through the regular trail system or something like that, and sort out what they can and can't do. And I guess finally, I think my YTP is going to have to get modified seriously. The Olympic team has just disbanded, and they're basically going through a period of detraining now, where they're going to do a lot less work, so then they can start building up strategically for July 2021. I was talking to my colleagues with the Rowing Canada Coaching Network, and they're starting to say, like, look, a regatta in October might actually be in question. So we may not get the go ahead to have big group regattas, even that far into the future. So that's really going to shift, I think, how I'm approaching training and preparation and athlete engagement. So I guess I'm trying to keep my finger on the pulse of what's happening and how it's going to change, and start envisioning how this YTP is going to be just very different very soon, and how I'm going to respond to that. And how the athletes are going to respond to that reality too, I think, is probably the hard part. And then I think really listening and talking to the athletes, and taking their feedback into account to drive the process and the solutions will be a critical part of what I'll be doing. And then yeah, that's kind of what I've been up to, and yeah, what I've been thinking about, and I certainly don't know it all, but I'd love to hear what's working with other people, and what your thoughts are, and how we can grow as a community. Maybe I hope this was helpful.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Pat. I'll unmute all you guys now. So if you want to talk, ask any questions, or share anything that you've been doing with your athletes, please feel free.
Yeah, sure. This is Sean Francois, and I'm an assistant coach with Basketball Nova Scotia's U14 provincial program, and working with female athletes specifically. And we're in a lot of ways like a lot of other sports where there's just so many unanswered questions, but specifically with regards to facilities, we don't have access to gyms. Even outdoor courts are off limits right now as well. So a lot of things that our athletes were doing just to kind of stay ready and keep their skills sharp and be able to work on specific things are kind of out of question. So on Monday,
Yes.
in
Okay.
conjunction with
I'll
our head coach,
stop.
I was able to send out just
Okay,
a
I'll be right back.
strength and
Give me a sec.
conditioning and injury prevention activities that they were able to do. And then this later this week, we'll get some ball handling and dribbling activities out to them because we can't even guarantee that every athlete's going to have access to like even a hoop in their driveway.
Mhm.
So we're kind of limited to being able to do strength and conditioning type stuff on their own, and then whatever they can do on the ball. But as far as like work on your shot and things around the rim, which obviously is a huge part of the sport, we're really kind of out of luck there. So we're just doing what we can. So it was interesting to see what you were doing, Patrick, where you have some other access to tools and ways I may be able to tie a little bit of that into what we're doing already. So thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm glad I hope it's helpful in some way.
Mm.
We're certainly lucky because we can train on rowing machines and have something kind of close to what we're trying to do. But yeah, I bet you they're going to get really good at ball handling.
Yeah, exactly. They will. Their core will be nice and strong, planks for days.
Yeah.
Pat, is there any thought on like how you're going to continue to engage these athletes if the whole entire season summer is canceled? Like that's my biggest concern is like, there's no events on the horizon. How do you get these kids to stay on their rowing machines all summer or do something physical and be a part of the program if there's no real goal?
Yeah, that's one of the things I've been trying to think about, and I really don't know. A few of the things I've been thinking about is short-term band-aids. I think especially when we go to a closed site where it's easy to upload things, maybe playlists, because like erging is really boring and it's not like rowing at all. So maintaining their interest will be really challenging. So if we can keep them going, like, who can share a playlist or, sharing the idea of building a playlist as a community or something might be really, your favorite songs or favorite workout songs for this type of workout or that. Um, you know, I think there could be a video challenge of some sort in the works. I think that will probably come more from them than from me. In terms of goals, I've been dreaming up a few. I had wanted to do an erg marathon. I usually do one on on Good Friday. I call it "Suffer for Your Sins." Um, so I have a lot to atone for. So every Good Friday, I row a marathon. It takes me about 3 hours. So I was going to challenge athletes to do that, but I think on the machines and at home that would just be torturous. So I might do a modified version of doing a half marathon, and like, what can we do there? And let's see this, and let's all do it together. I wonder about a bit of a Zoom thing, or I mean that would be really boring, probably watching each other erg for for an hour and a half. But maybe there's something like that. And then trying to create some goals or some markers, like we'll try and do some form of testing or something to chart our progress. Nothing's more motivating, I think, than seeing progress. So it could be a piece every that we're really targeting every month, or God, we're talking about months now. Or having a recurring workout like that one that we did last Saturday, and like, can we improve on it again? And yeah, I mean, if we're looking to keep in this situation, into the summer, it'll be really hard. And I'll probably have to drop my volume back a lot, to go with smaller, more manageable chunks of work, but something that's still engaging, and kind of fun, and has that community. I don't know. What are you working on, John?
Well, I think out of all the sports I'm a cyclist. I have the most leeway here because we have a great access to technology with the new indoor cycling programs and then the ability to actually go outdoors. But I think what I'm struggling with now is like how to really program anything for those athletes as it looks more likely that there won't be a season at all. Like that's my personal take on how things are shaping up. So, endurance rides are easy to program, but so I'm just struggling with like keeping some sort of periodization, but there's no periodization to really adhere to if there's no actual goals.
Yeah, I don't know what everyone else thinks, but I'm sort of coming to the reality that my role as a coach and a performance coach will probably be shifting to providing a service to the athletes, and giving them a platform to stay connected, and give them a reason to stay physically fit, and give them a reason to get up and do something in the morning. I think probably that will be the greatest accomplishment that I can offer them over the next, if it's going to be a series of months. That might be my biggest goal, and maybe one of the biggest things I do in my professional career. And it's really different, and not what I ever dreamed about doing or envisioned doing, but I think, that might be what the athletes are going to need the most.
Fair enough. It's a good way to look at it.
John, is there a way you could make it even like a competition between your team virtually? So for instance, like if all your competitions for the season do get canceled, could you do something independently? So maybe time, I'm not sure what distances they'd be racing, but each have them time a race and
Oh,
then
we have
compare it.
unlimited options. We have the ability now that we ride virtually together in a group while chatting. And then the guys kind of like with the virtual trainers, gets harder when they go uphill and gets easier when they go downhill, and drafts gets easier. So there's lots of options there. It's just, it's the you should do these intervals, or we should do some productive training, but there's nothing really we're doing that for. So, like any kid that likes to procrastinate, motivation is low without an actual goal. And a goal of just improving for a year from now is not the same as like, we're going away in 2 months. Let's pull our socks up.
Yeah.
And it's easier, like I said, it's easier for my top performing athletes because they're still hungry to train. They look at this as like a vacation. Like, I got no school now. I can ride 4 or 5 hours a day. I don't mind being by myself. It's the sort of the entry level and middle tier kids that you're wanting to keep around till next year, that I'm struggling with providing that guidance. So.
Pat, thanks, Pat. It's Cindy.
Cindy.
You've shared something, and actually I shared with Jeremy today, that we've created for, my staff and I created for our team at Dalhousie, and shared with our coaches as well, a program that we sent out. So I don't know, I'm absolutely willing to share it. Can I share the screen, Pat?
Kirsty?
Yep. You should be able to. Pat, do you have any more slides left?
No, I'm
okay. So Cindy, you should be able to, if you click on the bottom of your screen and click share screen, it should come up. Here we go. And Cindy, you're muted. I don't know if you know that.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So we created this Sunday night and sent it out to our athletes on Slack, which is our communication platform. So we weren't ahead of the curve like Pat was, just watching it come. It sort of came for us, and we were like, oh, priority for us, because our student athletes are all over the country and actually one overseas right now. The most important was to stay connected. So we created this with our strength and conditioning coach. We presented it to our athletes via Zoom on Sunday. We did it in 2 groups, one with the older group and then just met with the younger group yesterday. And we've created a couple challenges within it. So we committed to communicating with them once a week. So we're going to do that. So I'll just zip through it because we're on here a little bit longer. Started with mental wellness, why we were presenting this to them. We talked through those core values for us. We went into strength and conditioning, had our strength and no equipment and different ways that you can do that. Similar, obviously, to what Pat has done. So it's easier to make those modifications. We included a technical piece that you can do in isolation. So when I heard Sean talk about basketball, you can definitely create something for the kids. But they're going to come appreciate her. And then we're going to do a video.
Come on, Cindy.
The next unit base, so could be positions or but for us it's going to be like what do you look like as a midfield, what do we look like, what are our good qualities, and then giving them and having them go through them, and they have to interact. So they don't have anything to do right now really. So for us anyway, and our reality is probably different definitely than a 14-15-year-old, but if you can start to engage them in the ways that they share, which is videoing, that's what they do. They video each other and they post it. So, hey, video yourself doing something you do really good at and as a skill, and show us what that is. So our priority was week 1 and week 2 was reaching out to the athletes. So these 2 weeks are the same. And it gives them something to follow. Our physical program is on Kinduct is what we use. So they have all the details there. What we added in was this skill session on top of their physical session. So we gave them pictures, and then we also gave them exactly what they do with those pictures. So there's no there's nothing worse than wondering what they're supposed to be doing. So 8 minutes of work, 1 minute rest, repeat. Okay, great. What is that exactly? Well, it's right here. This is what it looks like. You can do it anywhere. So for us, this is what we've created. And right now, Anna was on here, but I think she's off. Our basketball coaches and hockey coaches are creating something similar using this template. And hopefully, I again, we're gonna opportunity for you. It's not dig into details, and we can do that because we're at the level we're at. I understand that, but I think you can do it in a different way as well. Because I know kids, one's 11, one's 16, and structure something that they're going to want to thrive on here soon. So anyway, yeah, I just thought I'd share that piece because we just threw it out there, and I shared it with Jeremy today and asked for his feedback. So that's it.
That's awesome. Thanks, Cindy. And for coaches that maybe you don't have access to a strength and conditioning coach, or don't know what workouts to provide to your athletes, especially if they're younger, we did have a session earlier today, this morning, around working out at home and what activities you can do and what movements you can kind of work on at this time. So things like power and speed. So if you do want to check out our YouTube, that session is on there. It's about 30 minutes long, and there's some good resources on there that are free and accessible. So definitely check that out if you're looking for some ideas for workouts for your athletes. Are there any other questions, comments, or any other ideas of how we can engage with our athletes during this time?
I want to thank Pat. Pat and I have been working together for a year now, and I think it's pretty cool. Differences between individual and team sport. It's a lot. It's a ton of work. Probably more for the individual than the team in this sense, but it's pretty cool. Thanks, buddy.
Great. Thank you. Thanks, Cindy. Thanks for sharing that. That was really cool.
Yeah, no worries.
Thanks,
All
Pat.
right. Thanks, everyone. And just to reiterate too, everything will be on YouTube if you want to go back and check out some of those resources. And we do have another session tomorrow on nutrition and kind of how to keep up with your nutrition during this isolation period. So if you have limited resources or just some easy recipes for your athletes and for yourself as coaches. So definitely check that out tomorrow at 3 p.m. or it will be posted on YouTube as well. But thank you so much, Pat, for this presentation and a lot of good takeaways from here. I will link some of those resources he mentioned, such as like Huddle and Facebook Workplace on our YouTube description. So check that out for sure. And if you have any questions too, feel free to reach out to me and I can provide you with some of those resources. And I hope to see some of you guys at some of our future coach socializations. And if you have any ideas too about future presentations, please feel free to reach out to me or comment in the group chat box about topic ideas, because we want to provide as many of these sessions as we can during this social distancing time. So thank you guys, and thank you, Pat. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.